Hello. I did not read the description on this one at all. She definitely leans dark. So I'm ready for it because I'm going to make myself sound as old as I am, stumbling. Oh, this sounds so dark, which I totally loved. And we want totally loved. So let's go. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. And welcome to, it's that time again, what's coming out in June. Again, how are we here again? How is the time going so fast? But you guys, I'm gonna warn you, you're going to want a pen and paper for this one because there are so many tremendous books coming out this month. I'm not even gonna waste time talking. Let's just get right into it. Let's also hit my arm while I do that. Okay, so pub dates, links to all that good stuff is going to be included down below. But first up, we have All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. So if you guys have been here for a little bit, then you might have seen that Razorblade Tears is one of my favorite books from 2022. So I listened to that last year and it was one of those books where I was so surprised by how simultaneously emotionally moving, thrillery, fast-paced, driven, such interesting characters. It's very heavy on the violence. It is not a universal recommendation, I would say, but if it's of interest to you, I would highly recommend it. So I was so moved by his prose, by his writing, and again, how he is able to weave together very difficult, very heavy, very weighty stories with such poetry in his words. So I'm very excited / need to get deeper into his books. So I do own Blacktop Wasteland, but we're here to talk about All the Sinners Bleed. Let me shimmy so I can pop up some pictures today. So this one is a black sheriff, a serial killer, a small town ready to combust. So we are following Titus Crown, who was the first black sheriff in the history of Sharon County, Virginia. In recent decades, Quiet Sharon has only had 2 murders. But after years of working as an FBI agent, Titus knows better than anyone that while his hometown might seem like a land of moonshine, cornbread, and honeysuckle, secrets always fester under the surface. So the crux of this story, it says we have a school teacher is killed by a former student, and then the student is fatally shot by Titus's deputies. So Titus starts to investigate, and he unearths terrible crimes and a serial killer who has been hiding in plain sight, haunting the dirt lanes and woodland clearings of Sharon. So I am going to guess that once again, there is going to be weightiness and violence to this book. I also have no doubt there's going to be incredibly drawn characters and beautiful writing combined. So I'm really looking forward to it. I live for this cover, by the way, and I'm going to be picking it up and reading it. So stay tuned. The next book I have is a YA thriller, and this is called Some Shall Break by Ellie Marney. So this is the second book in a series. The first book is called None Shall Sleep. So I'm going to not talk too much about what this book is going to be about because I don't want to ruin anything for you guys. But the first book has a definite Silence of the Lambs vibes to it, down to the fact that it's set in the 80s, which I totally loved. And we wind up having... It's a little bit similar to the Jennifer Lynn Barnes The Natural series, although I will say that this one definitely skews much darker. But we have 2 teenagers who wind up getting recruited by the FBI. So one of them is a survivor of a serial killer, and the other one is, I want to say Travis is maybe 20 years old. So it's not like they're 15 and getting recruited, but they are brought in to help the FBI deal with juvenile serial killers because the FBI is trying to learn from these serial killers who have been caught and are incarcerated, but the juvenile serial killers don't really want to talk to them. So in book number 1, Emma and Travis wind up, working on some cold cases, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to deal with these serial killers. And then of course something happens in the present that they get drawn into. But I really enjoyed it. I loved, dare I say, because I'm going to make myself sound as old as I am, the nostalgia of having a book set in the 80s because we're not dealing with cell phones and on the internet and this fast-paced, easy-peasy research. They're doing real research. Things are so much harder. It reminds me of a junior version in some ways of the Patricia Cornwell series. It went way darker than I was expecting. I wasn't mad about it, but I was shocked because I do feel like there are series like The Naturals, which Jennifer Lynn Barnes will definitely take you on a thriller ride, but she's not necessarily taking you on a totally dark path. So I highly recommend this series. I really was surprised by just how invested I became in the first book, and I'm excited to see what happens with these characters. So that one's coming out. Next up is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. You know I already have my pre-order going. You know I begged for an arc of this book and I didn't get one. I didn't get one. I'm really bummed because I got the arc last year, but it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. It's fine. So, The Only One Left by Riley Sager. So this one is pitched as a gothic chiller about a young caregiver assigned to work for a woman accused of a Lizzie Borden-like massacre decades earlier. So if you guys are fans of Riley Sager or have sat through me talking about him many, many times, he takes inspiration from movies, from, in this case, Lizzie Borden, some true crime, and puts his own twist on things. So he loves horror movies, he loves the thriller genre, and I love him and I love his writing. So this one has a little bit of a nursery rhyme that goes like, kind of pitches it. So it says, at 17, Lenora Hope hung her sister with a rope, stabbed her father with a knife, took her mother's happy life. It wasn't me, Lenora said, but she's the only one not dead. So that happened on the Maine coast on a bloody night in 1929. And now we are meeting another 80s book. Now we're meeting Lenora in 1983 and her home health aide, Kit McDeer. And she is there to help for Lenora after her previous nurse fled in the night. So I don't even want to read more about this, but I don't know if we're going to get multiple timelines. I don't know if we're going to get weird stuff happening. I don't know if we're going to get Kit investigating what happened back then. I don't know. I don't care. All I needed to know was that he wrote a book and my pre-order was done. So cheers to Riley. You know that as soon as this baby shows up on my doorstep, I am putting down whatever it is I'm doing at the time and I'm diving in. Next up is The Whispers by Ashley Audrain. So she wrote The Push, which was definitely a dark and disturbing book about motherhood, about family, about sort of trusting yourself and doubting yourself. I really enjoyed that book. Again, pitched as a thriller, but very slow burn, very character driven, definitely dark and disturbing in a lot of ways. So I'm very curious to see what she writes next. So in this one, it says, a page turner about 4 suburban families whose lives are changed when the unthinkable happens, and what is lost when good people make unconscionable choices. Okay, so battery change, hopefully not a major angle change, but in this book, there was a garden party a couple of months ago, and Whitney is one of the moms, and she is overheard by basically all of the guests at this party berating her son, Xavier. And later that night, Xavier falls out of a window at their house. So we also, my understanding is, get a perspective from Rebecca. Rebecca lives across the street from them. Her husband is also an emergency room doctor, and questions start to arise. Was it an accident? Was it something else? And then I think we might get points of view from other moms in the neighborhood. I might be making that part up because I don't know too much about this book yet. And like, I'm trying not to read it. I mean, it's all here. I'm just trying not to read too deep because some of these descriptions go too far. But I have no doubt that we're going to get yet another exploration into motherhood. And I imagine complications in female friendships. It sounds like maybe some tensions among these friends, questions that are coming up in the neighborhood about what actually happened. And I don't know what actually happened, so we're just gonna have to wait and see. But she definitely leans dark, so I'm ready for it. The next book I actually have a physical arc of, and this is The Girls of Summer by Katie Bishop. So massive thanks to St. Martin's for sending this to me. I'm very excited about this. This also came with a very cool publicity pack. Like, there's some fake Polaroid photos. This is a vacation book set in Greece. Very excited. So this one says, what if everything you remember is a lie? I remember arriving here by boat, the harbor bathed in a syrupy earth evening glow. The taste of the local alcohol in my mouth as I danced, the feeling that if I didn't belong to him, then I would die. Rachel has been in love with Alistair for 15 years, even though she's now married to someone else. Even though she was a teenager when they met, even though he is 20 years older than she is. Now in her 30s, she is obsessed with reliving the events of that long ago summer in Greece. But when dark and deeply suppressed secrets about Alistair rise to the surface, Rachel is forced to reconsider the story she's been telling herself about their relationship, and about her time working at the bar owned by Alistair's business partner, an enigmatic and wealthy man who controlled so much more than she ever could have realized. So this is pitched as memory, trauma, power, and consent against the backdrop of a one life-changing summer in the Greek Isles. It is a debut. Like I said, it is Vacation in Greece. It's a summertime book. The timing is perfect to read this one, and I'm really interested in it. So I'm very excited for it. Thank you again to St. Martin's for sending it to me. I will keep you guys posted on my review of this one as well, but it just feels like a perfect seasonal book that is also going to be dark and probably challenging to read in some ways, but I suspect page-turny as well. So there you go, Girls of Summer. Next up is another pre-order of mine. This is 0 Days by Ruth Ware. Again, auto-buy-author for me, such a huge fan. I have not read The It Girl. I don't know why I did such, although it's also a dark academia book, so that's probably part of it. I did such a garbage job of reading new releases last year that I have a lot to catch up on. But anyway, this one's coming in the mail. So this one is pitched as an adrenaline-fueled thriller that combines Mr. and Mrs. Smith with The Fugitive, about a woman in a race against time to clear her name and find her husband's murderer. So this feels a little bit different to me for Ruth Ware, so maybe she's stepping into some new territory, which does not disappoint me in any kind of a way. So it says, hired by companies to break into buildings and hack security systems, Jack and her husband Gabe are the best penetration specialists in the business. But after a routine assignment goes horribly wrong, Jack arrives home to find her husband dead. And to add to her horror, the police are closing in on their suspect, her. So now she is on the run, running out of options. She has to figure out who she can trust, who killed her husband. We will all find out together. So very excited. Love, 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 love Ruth Ware. So I'm excited for that one. And again, it does sound very different for her, which doesn't disappoint me. Next up is The Spare Room by Andrea Bartz. So in this one, we have staying with a friend and her husband is sexier and deadlier than anyone could have imagined. Domestic suspense. Let's go. So Kelly's new life in Philadelphia has turned into a nightmare. She's friendless and jobless, and the lockdown has her trapped in a tiny apartment with the man she gave up everything for, who just called off their wedding. So this is a panorama book. Here we go. The only bright spot is her newly rekindled friendship with her childhood friend, Sabrina, now a glamorous best-selling author with a handsome, high-powered husband. Ba-boom. When Sabrina and Nathan offer Kelly an escape hatch, volunteering their spare room of their remote Virginia mansion, she jumps at the chance to run away from her old life. There, Kelly secretly finds herself falling for both her enchanting hosts, until one night a wild and unexpected threesome leads the couple to open their marriage for her. I have not read this review. I'm like, wow, here we go. At first, Kelly loves being part of the risque new world, but when she discovers that the last woman they invited into their marriage is missing, oh no. She starts to wonder if they could be dangerous and if she might be next. Hello. I did not read the description on this one at all. So I read her first book, The Lost Night, and I really enjoyed it. I have not yet read We Were Never Here, which is like the one. It was like a Reese pick and it made her a best-selling author, and I've heard great things about it, but I very much enjoyed her as an author, so I'm curious about this. And when I was like, oh, like an escape and a writers and yay, hot husbands, let's go, let's go. So let's go. The next book I have is The Quiet Tenant, and this is by Clemence Michelon. I'm probably butchering that last name. So I actually have an e-arc of this. This is a book that was recommended by Abby from Crime by the Book, and she actually worked on this in her publishing life. So I am going to be picking up the arc of this before it comes out. And it says, a pulse-pounding psychological thriller. This is a debut novel also. And it's about a serial killer narrated by those closest to him, his 13-year-old daughter, his girlfriend, and the one victim he has spared. So we are following Aidan Thomas, a hardworking family man and somewhat beloved figure in the small upstate town where he lives. He's the kind of man who always lends a hand and has a good word for everyone. But Aidan has a dark secret he's been keeping from everyone in town and those closest to him. He is a kidnapper and a serial killer. Aidan has murdered 8 women, and there's a 9th he has earmarked for death, Rachel, imprisoned in a backyard shed, fearing for her life. But when Aiden's wife dies, he and his 13-year-old daughter Cecilia are forced to move. Aiden has no choice but to bring Rachel along, introducing her to Cecilia as a family friend who needs a place to stay. Oh, this sounds so dark. Aiden is betting on Rachel, who has been in his captivity for 5 years. He's betting on her to be too brainwashed and fearful to attempt escape. But Rachel is a fighter and a survivor and recognizes Cecilia might just be the lifeline she's waited for all of these years. So we have Rachel testing the new boundaries of her living situation because clearly she's living with them. She's not in the shed anymore. She begins to form a tenuous connection with Cecilia. And when Emily, a local restaurant owner, develops a crush on the handsome widower, oh, Emily, no! She finds herself drawn into Rachel and Cecilia's orbit, coming dangerously close to discovering his secret. So we are seeing this, as I said, through these 3 perspectives of these 3 women, and I'm very curious about it. And you guys know I'm a huge fan of Abby and her recommendations, so I have no doubt this one is going to be amazing. The next book I have is The Woman Inside, and this is by M.T. Edwardson. So in this one, we are following Bill Olson. He is recently widowed and is desperate to provide for his daughter, Sally. Struggling to pay rent, he welcomes in a lodger to their home, Carla, a law student and aspiring judge who works as a housekeeper to make ends meet. Her clients are the Ritters, an incredibly wealthy couple who hide behind closed doors. The wife is ill and hasn't left the house in months. The husband is controlling and obsessive. Is he just a worried husband, concerned for his wife's health, or is there something more sinister at play? As Bill's situation becomes more dire, Carla is forced to make a difficult choice. And when the Ritters wind up dead and Carla is pulled in for questioning, she's made to defend some parts of her past she'd rather not revisit. I am stumbling today. Every person in The Woman Inside is hiding something, but could any of them really have been driven to kill? Let's find out. Let's find out. I'm excited for this. So that's going to do it for, again, as always, just a handful of books that are coming out in June, but you guys know the spotlight is all over Riley Sager for me. So be prepared to hear me talk about him again. It's probably been a minute since I've mentioned him in a video. But let me know what book you guys are most excited about in June. Have you had a chance to read any of the books before they've come out? Does anybody have an arc of Riley Sager and I can be super jealous of you? Let me know down below. But I hope everyone is doing fantastically, and thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you guys in another video really soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.